Case file number 3639, written by Bizarre21. The prickle on the back of my neck. Way back in 1977, I was 14. Word of caution. If anyone even mentions weather balloons to me one more time, I will bonk them on their head. I was living in Northern Virginia at the time. A densely populated suburban neighborhood maybe 20 minutes outside of DC. I know what people say. Oh, it was just experimental military tech. Look, I do get it. We have a need to explain things, fit them in boxes, make them make ordinary sense. And those aircraft definitely existed back then. But the military doesn't test top secret prototypes over massive residential communities right next to the nation's capital. That's what they have Groom Lake and New Mexico for, and Area 51, but it's not what you think. This was broad daylight, mostly clear sky besides a patchy, lonely cloud or two in the distance. I was walking home through the sports field of my old grade school's backyard when I got a prickly sensation on the back of my neck, like someone is staring at the back of your head. Did you know there really is a sensation we get when someone is staring at us? Not fully understood. But I digress. I looked up and there it was, 300 to 400 feet directly above me. It was roughly egg-shaped, maybe 40 feet long, and the weirdest part was the color. It wasn't metallic or shiny, it looked organically shimmery, for lack of better words. Nondescript. No wings, no rotors, no visible engines, and the part that haunts me, no noise. I mean, if you had a decibel meter going, it's almost like the sound pressure would go negative. It felt loudly quiet, if that contradiction can enter your mind. There were these odd-shaped patches here and there, on the surface, that looked like they could have been windows or places where light shines through, but they were very dark. I think it was following me, and even looking at me. As soon as it realized I'd spotted it, as soon as we had that electric bond, the thing left. It moved toward the horizon at a speed I can't even describe, and it did so instantly. We're talking G-forces off the scales. Any of our craft, from back then or today, accelerating that fast, it would not just kill anyone inside, but it ripped the craft itself apart too. Every bolt, every screw, every weld, shredded immediately. It climbed altitude at an equally astonishing rate as to its acceleration, hovering to gone in barely a blink. This was just a few months before Close Encounters of the Third Kind hit theaters. Seeing that movie was a trip, but even then, Spielberg's ships were all mechanical with bright flashing lights. What I saw had no lights. In fact, I had no priming at all for this. Before Close Encounters, at least in my circle, had never heard of Roswell yet. Okay, I won't mention it, weather balloons, don't worry, I don't want to be bonked on the head. I understand the frustration though, because, yeah, people want to explain things. Like I just said, I need to try to find explanations. I think I'm a bit more open-minded than the average person, but you want to place it into a box. Okay, this was a weather balloon, a gaseous explosion, or something like that. Something that the standard official cliche explanation. But there are times, of course, where that doesn't fit. That's not it. I've never experienced anything like that myself. I've seen shooting stars in the sky. That's pretty much it. Nothing weird at all, which irks me, because I do want to see an alien, or a UFO. Might not be alien, but yeah, show me something extraordinary. Probably just need to navigate closer to military bases. The weirdest thing is, if there's a common thread in all these alien or UFO encounters, the design of the ships are so varied, there's so many types, which kind of makes sense. Even for us, we might use similar materials, but the shapes and everything can be pretty varied, like a B-2 bomber versus a Cessna. A way wildly different design and even color. Got a piece of hair there. So yeah, the different designs, not that crazy when you think about it. Maybe different species also here. I think there's probably more than just one. But yet the silence, the fact there's no sound being produced is wild. Like any machine we make, even electric vehicles, they make a whirring, whining almost sound when they're activated, when the juice flows. when you pull on that voltage, there's a distinct sound. Not as loud as mechanical, combustion engines, but still audible. So the fact there's no noise is the most mysterious. Well, no, the fact it can blink out of existence or accelerate so fast, those are the most mysterious parts. But then you add the lack of noise, and it's so baffling and cool to me. Welcome, I'm Paul. This is Dave. Today I have 10 glitch in the matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one involves caramel candies. Also, just a quick note, there's apparently a tornado watch in my area in recording this on March 16th. Dave, I think, is a bit scared. In North Carolina. And tornado watch. I think we'll make it. If you're watching this, we made it. So yeah, I guess I don't need to say anything, but yeah, okay. Also, like the video if you feel so inclined. Really helps. Let's get to it. Case file number 3640, written by Miss Sassafras, 1977. Golden Girls at 5 a.m. I woke up at around 4 a.m. to tinkle. The house should have been quiet, but as I was walking past her room, I froze. This was my friend's room. She's old. She was 94 with dementia, but I heard a woman talking in there. My heart started pounding immediately. It didn't even occur to me that it was my friend. We hadn't gotten more than a few fragmented words out of her in ages. She's 94 again and has been pretty much gone to the most fricked up disease to ever exist. She's usually totally nonverbal or just confused, even if she can mutter out a few syllables. I opened the door, and there she was. My 94-year-old friend was sitting bolt upright at the edge of her bed. She wasn't staring into space or mumbling. She looked completely 100% lucid. She looked right at me and just grinned. She saw me as who I was, not a distant, vague impression of a figure she knew from decades ago. Me! I'm pretty sure the only thing I managed to choke out was, "Holy frick!" She actually laughed, a real, genuine, soulful laugh, and said, "I'm stuck," while pointing down at the bed rail. She'd managed to wedge her left leg under the railing while trying to climb out of bed. I'm convinced that if that safety rail hadn't been there, she would have just stood up and walked right out of the room like she was 20 years younger. Hell, 40 years younger. I was freaked out, amazed, confused, terrified, and more. So many feelings that don't even have words. I was everything in that moment and overwhelmed. I helped her get untangled and back into a comfortable position. I didn't want to leave her, so I ended up sitting in her room for the next 4 hours. We talked until she finally drifted back to sleep around 8 a.m. I told her about my life now, my new boyfriend, plans to have children. It wasn't a profound conversation about the meaning of life or anything like that. We just chatted about the coming day, life stuff, my life, her life, and watched a little Golden Girls together. Normal friends being friends for the last time. When she woke up again later that morning, that glimmer was gone. She was back to being lost in dementia. She passed away just a few weeks after that. I think it was actually a blessing. I'll never forget the way she smiled at me when I opened that door. I'm still feeling that ensemble of emotions as I relive this to get it out. It's hard. But the mystery for me is who she was talking to before. No one? To herself? In those few hours she was as sharp as she was ages ago, so that'd be weird. Was there actually something else or someone else in there with her? Case file number 3641, written by Wholesome Crispy Treat. Foam or something like that. Okay, I don't even know where to start. Throughout my life, several very strange things have happened to me that are completely inexplicable. However, a couple of hours ago, something happened that to me is so far the strangest and most out-of-this-world thing that has ever happened to me. I won't go into unnecessary details so as to not make this any longer, but my subway card disintegrated in my hand, just like that. I didn't drop it, it wasn't stolen. I felt it go away. All this happened in a second, as I was entering the subway and putting it in my bag. I had it in my hand when I put it away, and at that moment it went away. I was very shocked. Even with my empty hand inside the bag, I looked down at the floor behind me. There was no one there. No one took it and I didn't drop it. I know that, because as I said, I felt it literally vanish. However, as a reflex, I looked everywhere for it, but it simply disintegrated in my hands, as if it were made of a material that dissolves like foam or something like that in water. It simply disappeared. I felt it slip through my fingers into nothingness, not fall, but cease to exist. I was so shocked that I started crying. I couldn't process it, and I still can't. I was very upset. As I said, many very, very strange things have happened to me throughout my life, but nothing like this. I'm not on any medication. I don't take anything. I wasn't drugged or upset in any way. It happened to me just as I'm telling you, and it makes absolutely no sense. I'm not looking for an explanation, because there isn't one. Well, you're not looking for an explanation. That's actually probably the healthiest mindset to have, and not one I share. I need to try to explain things at least. But yeah, there probably is one. It's literally just DOP. The only thing is this one is an advanced version of DOP, I would say, where you feel you're holding the object and it disappears as you're touching it. That is much rarer. Normally it's out of sight, out of mind, and then it vanishes. I'd be curious if this ever comes back though. And if it does, is it an instance where it's just, you're not looking and then eventually it comes back? Or is it one of those instances where it's like a frame cut? It's not there, you're looking, and then it's there. Like a snap. Those are pretty extreme. Case file number 3642, written by Mattfink01. Fog, then stars. I was riding home on my motorcycle, and the road runs alongside a river at the bottom of a fairly steep-sided valley, so there's often very thick fog. That was the case last night. I could only see a few feet ahead, but I know the road like the back of my hand, and I was riding slowly. At one point, I took a sharp right turn, then passed a hotel by the side of the road. Impossible to miss even in the fog. It had lots of multicolored lights hanging on the wall. Then, the road curved slightly to the right, then to the left, a short straight stretch, another sharp left turn, and then goes under a very narrow railway bridge, followed by a long straight stretch. So I passed the hotel, meaning that I had reached the bottom of the valley. Then I took the turns and found myself on the short straight stretch before the bridge. The bridge is on a left-hand bend, so I moved to the right to cross it, except the bridge never came into view. I knew I was driving slowly, but I had music in my ears, and I was driving along a long straight stretch in even thicker fog. A whole 2-minute, 15-second song played. I was still on that straight stretch. It was impossible I could have crossed the bridge without seeing it. And I had this weird feeling I shouldn't stop, so I kept driving. Suddenly, I saw a light pierce the fog in the distance, and it was the hotel. I drove past it again, still not wanting to stop, then around the 2 or 3 bends across the bridge again, and then the fog suddenly lifted, revealing a starry sky, as if everything was normal. I don't know where I was during those few minutes, but it was strange, and I don't think it was on Earth. Case file number 3643, written by Mountain Person 808. 20 minutes, 180 degrees. I went grocery shopping after work. I clocked out at 7:30 p.m. and did the 15-minute drive to the grocery store. I didn't note the time as I parked, but it would have been around 7:45 p.m. I pulled into the space, so the front of my car was facing away from the store. I walked into the grocery store, realized I forgot my wallet, and walked back out to get it. I got my wallet out of the car, which was still facing away from the store, and went back to do my shopping. I spent around 20 minutes shopping, checked out, and walked back to my car. I initially had trouble finding it, because I was looking for the back end of my car. I clicked the lock button on my key, and was alarmed to see my car was right where I left it, but now facing the store, as if I had backed up into the space. I have never in my life backed up into a parking space. I actually walked around the back of my car to confirm the license plate before opening the door. Everything inside my car was exactly as I left it. Cash, work bag, even the quarter I dropped on the floor this morning. Nothing about the car had changed beside it doing a 180 rotation. Then I turned the car on and noticed the clock on my dashboard read 7:45 p.m. I checked my watch and it read the same thing. I was ready to chalk this all up to a major lapse in memory until I got home and checked my laptop. The last piece of documentation I entered was time-stamped for 7:29 p.m. So at that point, I have no reasonable explanations for how this all happened. I'm certainly open to suggestions though. I asked the store security and they told me that they do not have CCTV footage of the section of the parking lot I was in. And for the record, I'm not on any medications, I was sober, and there is not a CO2 leak in my house. Case file number 3644, written by Ms. Robin Hood. 1 minute, 58 seconds. I haven't had an odd experience for like 10 years. It feels disturbing when it does happen, and I'm not a spiritual person. Last week, I took my son upstairs to his nursery. It's an attic conversion. I remember setting him down on the floor to play because I needed to make a quick call and didn't want him fussing in the crib. I was facing the wall with my phone propped up on the dresser, looking at some notes while I talked. I was only turned away for a tiny window of time. When I finished the call and turned around is when I noticed the glitch. My baby was sitting in his crib. He was happy and smiling, sure, all good there. But he was completely surrounded by about 15 stuffed animals, and some of these plushies are huge, way too heavy for a baby to lift. This is an extreme suffocation hazard that I wouldn't subject my precious baby to in my wildest unhinged nightmares. If you're not a mother, you just won't understand how wrong this image was. As far as my phone call goes, I checked my call log and it lasted exactly 1 minute and 58 seconds. I took him out of an empty crib this morning. I hadn't even entered that room again until that specific phone call, and my husband never went upstairs. When I set him down, it was an empty crib. I asked him immediately after this, and he said I was nuts. He definitely didn't put the toys in there. I am absolutely paranoid about SIDS and suffocation. This is my baby, okay? I would sacrifice my own life in half a beat to save his. I never would ever put stuffed animals in the crib because it's a major hazard, like I said. Even if I had autopiloted and put him in the crib, which I'm 100% sure I didn't, there is no universe where I would have grabbed 15 toys and overflowed his sleeping space with them. I've been typing this scenario out as it relates to my child and the immediate shock of it, but the other freaking thing is that we don't have any stuffed animals in the house anywhere. We're the only people who live here unless there's some crazed stuffy man who lived in our freaking walls and left without a trace. I felt like I was going crazy, but my son was just sitting there grinning in the middle of a pile of toys that weren't there 2 minutes prior, so at least he was having a ball of it. There are so many aspects to this glitch. Of course, I think the most prominent one is just that you don't have these stuffies and they appeared. So that's just an appearance, related to DOP. That they went into the crib is also creepy, mainly because of the hazard potential. But I don't think there was any intent or malice, and I don't think these were like Chucky stuffies. That would be a new twist on it. Instead of Chucky being a doll, just make him a stuffy, an angry or malicious bear. So in short, creepy, but I don't think there was any evil force involved. Of course, you being a mother, I can sympathize with the paranoia. Nothing wrong with that. Gotta keep your baby safe. Case file number 3645, written by Where's My Chin? Caramel Candies. This happened when my grandpa was reaching the end, not that long ago. God damn it. I dearly loved him. In his prime, he'd always have those caramel candies ready for me when I visited, but that couldn't compare to the sweetness of his soul. we decided to bring him back to his own house for home hospice because we wanted him to be in his own space, surrounded by his own things. I'd want the same thing in his place, I think. The setup was pretty standard though. He was in his bedroom, my mom was in the guest room, and I was crashing on the living room couch. At that stage, he was pretty much gone, mentally, holding on by the loosest thread, and all I can hope is he was so little in his presence that he couldn't feel any pain. Between the progression of everything and the heavy meds, he mostly just slept. He wasn't really having conversations with anyone anymore. But here's what happened that still unnerves me to my core. In the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly. The house was silent, as you'd expect, except I could hear talking coming from his bedroom down the hall. Very weird at this point. I got up and walked toward the door. As I got closer, I realized it was him. He sounded different. He wasn't mumbling or confused. He sounded fully awake and was chatting away with someone very lucidly. It was the most coherent I'd heard him in weeks. I just figured my mom had gone up to check on him and they were having a moment, so I reached out to grab the doorknob to join them. My heart was racing through my mind's optimism that in an unexplainable miracle, he was getting better. But, right before my hand touched the handle, I hit a wall. I got this sickening, nauseous feeling in my gut. It wasn't just creepy. It felt like a primal warning. Everything in my brain and body was screaming at me that if I turned that handle and opened that door, I would regret it for the rest of my life, in ways I may not even be able to understand. Like I was about to see something I wasn't supposed to see, that I was forbidden from seeing. I couldn't even stay in the hallway. I ran to my mom's room and climbed onto the bed on top of the covers next to her, then realizing she was soundly asleep, so whoever my Gramps was talking to wasn't her. I stayed with her all night, and I wasn't a kid, I was 13-ish. When my mom finally woke up a few hours later, I was still awake. I automatically told her, "I think Grandpa is dead." Why I said this makes no sense. For at least an hour after I had run to my mom's room, Dad wasn't here by the way, working, I kept hearing my Gramps muttering. Couldn't make out the words exactly. We went into his room together, and he had indeed passed away. He was gone, goddammit. I will never know anything. I don't think I'm supposed to. But I miss him so much. Okay, yeah, this has to be my favorite story, even though it's so devastating. And of course there was the other one involving the older lady who was lucid. And I think there's a common thread where this is a real medical thing or event that can happen, where in the final hours or days before they pass, the brain kind of like rewires and fires on all cylinders for the last jolt of effort and reforms its proper synaptic pathways. I don't know exactly the mechanism going on there to restore lucidity from dementia or other brain-related diseases. But it's remarkable. It's almost like the world is designed where you get to experience one last encounter or day or night in this case with someone you love. And as far as talking to someone else, in this case, the extreme fear you felt, are they talking to like an angel, a Grim Reaper? And is the Grim Reaper even malicious? I don't think so. It's scary to us because we don't want to pass away. We want to live forever. Maybe it's an entity that shuffles along souls to different universes via quantum immortality when they die. Or maybe it is indeed when they reach the line, this is the last universe, all other copies of them are perished. And then the Grim Reaper finally shuffles them along to the next voyage, whatever that might entail. So is there another entity in these rooms that they're talking to? That they're lucidly aware of? Maybe they need to form a choice to move on and they need that lucidity to do it. So it's given to them. Totally spitballing, but wow. These stories are so heavy. Case file number 3646, written by Vizine Drip. We could smell it. A few years ago, summer 2023, My girlfriend and I visited Lucky Eagle Kickapoo Casino in Eagle Pass, Texas. We were walking around and trying to decide what or where to eat. We even contemplated going into town for better options, but decided not to. We finally ended up eating at the River Bend for a quick bite. We finished up and continued walking around and gambled a bit. We were walking around on the new side when we both noticed a Whataburger in the corner. If you look at the floor plan online, it was in the back corner of Red Sky Grill. Imagine an airport-type restaurant front. We both looked at each other, a bit confused because we hadn't seen it earlier. I commented that we should have eaten there and maybe later in the night we could grab some and eat it in our room. We saw people working there and placing orders in the window for pickup. It had the classic Whataburger signage. We could also smell it. If you've ever been to Whataburger, you know the delicious smell. Only Subway has a more distinct smell. A few hours later, we decided it was time to eat and went to grab some Whataburger. It was gone. There was nothing but slot machines where it used to be. We looked at each other again, both confused out of our brains. We split up, both looking to see if maybe we just saw it somewhere else. This was both our first time to this casino. Nope, nothing. I went to ask some casino personnel and they all said there's never been a Whataburger in the casino. What the hell is going on? We weren't even drinking alcohol, just bottled water. No drugs or medication. Both completely stone cold sober. I even called my mom who frequents the casino, and she also said there's never been one there. We both agree that we either glimpsed into another reality where there is a Whataburger there, or we both saw into the future where there will be one later. However, I feel it was a look into another reality, personally. It wasn't a hallucination. We both saw it at the same time and pointed at it like, oh look, a Whataburger. It was 100% there. We joke about it to this day when we can't decide what to eat and point at an empty space and say, we can eat at Whataburger. It was very odd to say the least. Although strange things happened to me more than what I'd consider normal, so I don't discount anything anymore. Case file number 3647, written by DatTF2, Power Rangers in South Park. I've been thinking about these two incidents lately, and the more I look back on them, the weirder they get. I'm not necessarily saying aliens, nor am I saying it wasn't aliens. Who knows? I do want to believe. All I know for a fact is that I definitely saw something that shouldn't have been there. The first time, I don't remember my exact age or the year, but if I had to guess, I was 9? I know I was still obsessed with Power Rangers, so that puts it right around 1994 or 1996. I was at a car wash in South Park, Colorado, with my stepmom. It was broad daylight when I looked up and saw this giant round metallic object just hanging in the sky. It most definitely wasn't a bird, it wasn't a plane, it was this massive silver disc. The craziest part was that I wasn't the only one who saw it. My stepmom and a few other people at the car wash were all standing there staring up at it, mouth agape. We were all completely motionless for what felt like forever, until it eventually just disappeared. To be precise in my words here, I do mean disappeared. One moment of reality, there, the next, not. The second encounter happened much later, in 2007. I had just gotten back from a trip, and it was about 10 p.m. I was in the middle of unpacking the car, exhausted and ready to go inside, when I saw what looked like a really blindingly bright shooting star. But then I realized it wasn't shooting at all. It was moving too slowly. It looked like it was directly above me as it passed by, and as I watched it, I noticed two tiny, little flashing lights right at the tail end of it. I kept my eyes on it as it cruised along, and then suddenly it zipped across the horizon. It shot off at an insane speed. And the strangest part to me, and my stepmom and others for the first encounter, is how there was no noise at all. Now, before people start jumping to conclusions, I'm open to the idea of these being classified tech. I actually have 2 family members who worked on highly secretive projects like the B-2 stealth bomber, so I know the government has stuff in the air that the general public doesn't know about for decades. Maybe it was ours, maybe it wasn't. If it is though, we humans have technology that simply breaks physics as the public knows it. Wouldn't that imply a conspiracy against all physics-related research publications? That the military knows the truth and is denying it to us. So I think, if this was ours or aliens, either way it's crazy. So yeah, 2 UFO stories in this batch, and I love UFOs, what can I say? I think this point is the most critical, that even if these are purely human-made, maybe aliens crashed and we reverse-engineered their ship and technology to incorporate into ours. Or we just did it all ourselves and we have craft that can accelerate this fast, blink out of existence, and still manage to remain intact. If it's aliens or that, it's crazy either way, because this violates everything we understand about how to move around. There's no way to do this, and quietly too. I mean, what does that even entail? Like, we should be able to go to different planets and easily get to the moon again, launch satellites effortlessly. So if the military does have this kind of technology, I think that's almost more unbelievable than it being actual aliens. Because that kind of tech is so unbelievably beyond what the public understands or can try to create. I mean, that logic makes it clear that aliens are more likely than the government having this kind of technology, because these craft are just too advanced. It wouldn't make any sense. Could you even keep a secret this big? It makes who shot JFK trivial. Completely trivial. Yeah. Case file number 3648, written by Aggie Bridges. The scar that started it all. Last week on Monday, I was hanging out at a local gaming spot, and one of the regulars that I don't know too well greets me by saying, "Hey, how's bouldering going?" I'm startled and confused because I have no idea where this is coming from, as I've never bouldered before in my life. I'm also not very athletic looking, and I definitely could never be mistaken as someone who does that. But he insists that we talked about this at length, and that he remembers it vividly. When I told him that it wasn't me he talked to, he looked at me like I was doing a bit or something, puzzled with a slight smile, like he was waiting for the punchline. I'm serious though. I tell him that I've never done bouldering in my life, and that I don't really intend to, and he's polite enough that he stops insisting that we talked about this and just asks, "Oh, are you afraid of heights?" To which I reply, "No, but I'm super clumsy. I'd probably fall and break my back." We keep having a friendly conversation, and he is just the nicest guy, so I'm just thinking he has mistaken me for someone else. As I'm racking my brain, thinking of how he could possibly associate me with bouldering, I reflect back on the only person I know who does this, a vague acquaintance of mine called Mina. I hadn't talked or heard from her in like 2 years, since she moved from the city to another one where she could be closer to nature. I make a mental note to check in on her and see how she's doing, but I forget about it and just go about my day until Tuesday night. Right as I'm about to sleep, a new post on Instagram pops up. It's Mina. Her first post in about a year. It was a video of her in a hospital bed, of her getting surgery, of her holding containers full of pills. She had fallen while bouldering and broken her back in several places. She's a paraplegic now. I'm in complete shock and feeling a deep sympathy for her. I'm of course contacting mutual friends and trying to piece out what happened, but no one knows. She hadn't posted a single thing up until now, and she's extremely private and living in another city, so a lot of people just didn't keep in touch like that. The thing is, I think this is it, right? That's the whole story. So when I go back next Monday to the gaming spot, I see the guy again and I tell him about my friend, thinking he'd get a kick out of the coincidence. I show him the video, and he expresses his condolences about my friend, and pauses the video on the part where she's showing her scar. He turns around and lifts his shirt. It's the same motherfricking scar. He tells me that he also was in a similar accident, albeit one where he fell from a balcony as a stupid teenager. He also broke his back. He was also a paraplegic. It was a long road to recovery for him, but now he's able to walk without so much as a limp. I'm just absolutely slack-jawed at all this. It's an insane coincidence, maybe the craziest one I've had all my life. There's other smaller crazy things, like me also having a back injury, L4-S1 herniated discs, my parents both being doctors that treat this sort of injury. My dad is a spine surgeon, and my mom is a rehabilitation doctor. And me having a weird, bad feeling when Mina told me about her plan to move. I can't help but feel a bit guilty, as if it's my fault somehow for not saying something. But I barely know her, so it's not as if my words would have changed her mind. But I don't know. I feel super weird. I half want to tell her, but also don't see how this would in any way be relevant or helpful to her with her current diagnosis. I also doubt walking is ever in the cards for her again, with an accident like this, but damn, such a strange, surreal experience. Now time for the jokes of the day. Do you know how much a rainbow weighs? Not much. It's pretty light. Literally is. My wife gave me an ultimatum. It's either her or my addiction to sweets. The decision was a piece of cake. Reminds me of Joey on the date. He eats the woman's cake that sounds wrong. He eats her actual dessert cake, and he's not even sorry, and I understand him. An air and space museum opened up near me, and it's just an empty warehouse. I was disappointed at first, but I can't really complain. It's exactly as described. My math teacher said that I was an average student. I told her that was mean. Math jokes. I accidentally planted the wrong flowers in my garden. Oopsie daisies. Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. I'll see you guys next time.